The Awakening. The abandoned facility stretched across the horizon like a sleeping giant, its crystalline spires catching the amber light of Kepler 442 b's twin suns. Zara Chen wiped sweat from her brow as she examined the alien architecture through her scanner. After 3 months of excavation, the human expedition had finally breached the main complex, but what they found inside defied all expectations. "This place is massive," Dr. Elena Rodriguez whispered beside her, adjusting her translation device. "The energy readings suggest it's been dormant for at least 3,000 years." Zara nodded, her engineer's eye taking in the intricate design. Unlike other alien structures they'd encountered, this facility seemed built for care rather than war. The walls curved organically, and bioluminescent panels provided gentle illumination throughout the corridors. Everything suggested a place of healing, of preservation. They moved deeper into the complex, following energy signatures that grew stronger with each step. The air hummed with residual power, and Zara's instruments detected complex life support systems still functioning despite the millennia of abandonment. Whoever built this place had intended for something to survive here for a very long time. The central chamber took Zora's breath away. A massive crystalline structure dominated the space, easily 50 meters tall and 20 meters wide. Inside the translucent prison, a shadowy form lay motionless. As they approached, details became clearer. The creature was enormous, with features that seemed part reptilian, part avian. Its scales had once been iridescent, but now appeared dull and cracked. Massive wings lay folded against its sides, and even in stillness, there was something majestic about its form. "My God," Elena breathed. "It's still alive. The bio readings are faint, but definitely present." Zara pressed her hand against the crystal surface. The material was warm to the touch, and she could see a complex network of tubes and wires feeding into the creature's body. This wasn't a prison built for punishment. This was a life support system, designed to keep something precious alive against all odds. The creature's condition broke her heart. Layers of grime and neglect covered its magnificent form. Parasitic growths had attached themselves to its scales, and its breathing was labored and shallow. Whatever this being was, it had been slowly dying for centuries, sustained only by machines that were themselves beginning to fail. Elena activated her portable lab equipment, scanning the creature from every angle. "Zara, this is incredible. The cellular structure is unlike anything we've ever encountered. It's not entirely biological, not entirely mechanical. It's some kind of hybrid organism." Zara barely heard her colleague's words. She was transfixed by the creature's face. Even in its weakened state, there was intelligence there. Its eyes, though closed, were surrounded by intricate patterns that suggested deep thought and emotion. This wasn't some mindless beast. This was a sentient being that had been abandoned to suffer alone for millennia. "We have to help it," Zara said quietly. Elena looked up from her readings. "Help it? Zara, we don't even know what it is. It could be dangerous." "Look at it, Elena. Really look at it. Does this seem like a creature built for destruction?" Zara gestured toward the being's position. Even unconscious, it had curled itself into a protective posture, wings wrapped around its body like a shield. "And look at this place. Every system here is designed for care, for healing. Someone loved this creature enough to build a sanctuary for it." Elena frowned but began analyzing the life support systems. "The technology is incredibly advanced. These machines have been adapting and repairing themselves for thousands of years, but they're finally breaking down. The creature's condition is deteriorating rapidly." Zara pulled out her engineering toolkit. If there was one thing humans excelled at, it was fixing broken things. She began tracing the power conduits, identifying failing components, and bypassed systems. The alien technology was complex, but its purpose was clear. Every machine in the chamber was dedicated to keeping the creature alive and comfortable. As she worked, Zara noticed something that made her pause. The creature's breathing had changed, becoming slightly deeper and more regular. Her scanner showed elevated brain activity. It was responding to their presence, even in its unconscious state. "Elena, I think it knows we're here." Her colleague looked up from her analysis. "That's impossible. The neural activity suggests deep coma states." But as they watched, the creature's eyes slowly opened. They were the most beautiful things Zora had ever seen, like looking into twin galaxies filled with stars. There was no aggression in that gaze, no hunger or malice. Instead, there was something that transcended species, barriers, hope. The creature tried to move but was too weak, its eyes fixed on Zora, and she felt a strange sensation in her mind, as if someone was gently knocking on a door she didn't know existed. Not invasion, but invitation, a request for permission to communicate. Without thinking, Zora lowered her mental barriers. Images flooded her consciousness, not overwhelming but gentle, like memories shared between old friends. She saw the creature as it had been, magnificent and free, soaring through alien skies with others of its kind. She saw it caring for smaller beings, protecting them with fierce devotion. She saw the day it was captured, not through violence, but through betrayal by those it had trusted. The creature's name came to her, Thrakos. It meant guardian of the peaceful, in the ancient language of its people. For millennia, it had served as protector to a species that had long since evolved beyond the need for such guardians. When they decided physical protection was primitive, they had discarded Thrakos like an outdated tool. But they couldn't bring themselves to kill their former protector. Instead, they had built this facility as both prison and preserve, keeping Thrakos alive but forgotten, a relic of their more primitive past. The creature had spent 3,000 years in artificial sleep, dreaming of skies it would never see again. Tears rolled down Zora's cheeks as the mental connection faded. She understood now why she felt such immediate compassion for this being. Thrakos was like humanity itself, caught between what it had been and what it could become, struggling to find purpose in a universe that seemed to have moved beyond its gifts. "I'm going to clean you up," she whispered, placing her hand against the crystal again. "You deserve better than this." Working with Elena, Zora began the delicate process of bypassing the containment field. The alien security systems were sophisticated but not malicious. They recognized the human's benevolent intent and gradually powered down. As the crystal barriers dissolved, the full scope of Thrakos' condition became clear. The magnificent creature was covered in layers of bio-waste and parasitic growth. Its scales, which should have shimmered with natural oils, were dry and cracked. Its claws had grown brittle from disuse, and its wings showed signs of muscular atrophy. Most heartbreaking of all, its eyes held the dull acceptance of a being that had given up hope long ago. Zora activated the facility's cleaning systems, modified to be gentle but thorough. Warm, nutrient-rich fluid began flowing over Thrakos' body, washing away centuries of neglect. The creature shuddered at the first touch of cleansing warmth, and a sound escaped its throat that might have been a sob. As the cleaning process continued, Thrakos began to change. The parasites fell away, revealing scales that still held hints of their former brilliance. The bio-waste dissolved, showing the creature's true magnificent form. Most importantly, life returned to its eyes as it felt care and attention for the first time in millennia. Elena monitored Thrakos' vital signs, amazed by the rapid improvement. Its cellular regeneration is accelerating. The cleaning process is triggering natural healing responses that have been dormant for centuries. Zora worked tirelessly, using her engineering skills to repair and optimize the facility's systems. She replaced failing components with human technology, creating hybrid systems that combined alien sophistication with human ingenuity. For the first time in thousands of years, every machine in the chamber operated at peak efficiency. As the day progressed, Thrakos grew stronger. It began to move more freely, stretching muscles that had been cramped for millennia. Its wings, once folded in defeat, slowly began to unfurl. The creature's breathing deepened, and its eyes regained their galactic brilliance. But the most remarkable change was in its demeanor. Where there had been resignation, now there was curiosity. Where there had been despair, now there was cautious hope. Thrakos watched Zora work with growing fascination, as if unable to believe that someone would freely choose to help rather than exploit. Late in the day, as Zara completed the final system repairs, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. Belena's scanner detected incoming ships, their signatures matching known alien military vessels. Zara, we have company. Multiple craft approaching fast. Through the chamber's transparent dome, they could see ships descending from orbit. These were not exploratory vessels, but military cruisers, armed and ready for conflict. Someone had been monitoring the facility, waiting for the moment when its guardian might awaken. Thrakos sensed the approaching danger. The creature's mental voice touched Zora's consciousness again, filled with urgency and warning. Images flashed through her mind, the face of the alien commander who had originally betrayed and imprisoned Thrakos, still alive after all these centuries, still determined to keep the Guardian contained. The ships landed outside the facility, and armored figures began advancing toward the central chamber. Leading them was a being that seemed carved from living metal, its form both beautiful and terrible. This was Commander Vex, the one who had convinced Thrakos' people that their guardian was obsolete, a relic of their violent past that needed to be preserved but contained. As the intruders approached, Thrakos struggled to rise. Despite its weakness, the creature positioned itself between Zora and the approaching threat. After millennia of imprisonment, its first instinct was still to protect. The guardian in Thrakos was not dead, merely sleeping, and Zora's kindness had awakened more than just the creature's body. The confrontation that would determine both their fates was about to begin. The bond. Commander Vex entered the chamber with the confidence of absolute authority. His metallic form gleamed under the facility's lights, and his voice carried the weight of millennia when he spoke. "Step away from the creature, human. You have interfered with matters beyond your understanding." Zara positioned herself between Vex and Thrakos, her small human form dwarfed by both alien beings, but her determination unwavering. "I understand enough. This creature has been suffering for thousands of years, abandoned and forgotten by those who should have cared for it." Vex's expression, visible through his translucent faceplate, showed a mixture of contempt and pity. Humans, and their primitive emotions. You see suffering where there is merely necessary containment. Thrakos was a weapon, bred for violence in an age when my people believed might made right. We evolved beyond such barbarism. Weapon? Zara's voice carried disbelief. Everything I've seen suggests it was a protector, a guardian of peaceful beings. Commander Vex gestured, and holographic displays materialized around them, showing scenes from ancient history, battle-scarred worlds, cities in flames, and creatures like Thrakos at the center of the destruction. But Zara's enhanced perception, still linked to Thrakos, showed her the true context these images lacked. "You show the destruction but not the cause," she said firmly. Thrakos and its kind were defending colonies from invaders. They were the last line of defense for beings who couldn't protect themselves. Elena, who had been quietly analyzing the holographic data, looked up from her scanner. "Zara's right. The energy signatures suggest these images have been edited. The timeline doesn't match the destruction patterns." Vex's composure wavered slightly. "Irrelevant. What matters is that such creatures represent our violent past. They must remain contained for the good of galactic civilization." Behind Zara, Thrakos stirred. The creature's mental voice touched her consciousness, sharing memories that revealed the truth Vex was hiding. She saw ancient councils where Vex himself had argued for aggressive expansion, using guardians like Thrakos as weapons of conquest rather than protection. When the galactic community condemned such actions, Vex had turned on his own guardians, blaming them for his mistakes. "It wasn't evolution," Zara said, understanding flooding through her. "It was guilt. You used creatures like Thrakos for conquest, then imprisoned them when the galaxy held you accountable." Vex's form tensed, energy weapons powering up on his armor. Enough. You will step aside, and the creature will return to containment. This is not negotiable. But as the commander advanced, something unexpected happened. Threkos, despite its weakened state, began to sing. The sound was unlike anything Zora had ever heard. It wasn't a roar or a growl, but a complex harmonic that seemed to resonate with the very atoms of the chamber. The facility's systems responded, powering up to full capacity for the first time in millennia. But more than that, the song carried emotion and memory, broadcasting Threkos' true nature to every mind capable of receiving it. Elena gasped as the mental contact hit her. Zara, I can feel it. This creature, it's not violent at all. It's filled with love, with the desire to protect and nurture. Even Vex's soldiers began to lower their weapons as the song affected them. The truth of what they were supporting became clear, not the containment of a dangerous beast, but the imprisonment of a being whose only crime was caring too much. Vex himself staggered under the psychic revelation. For the first time in millennia, he was forced to confront the memories he had suppressed, the guilt he had projected onto his former guardians. Threkos' song stripped away his rationalizations, leaving only the truth of his betrayal. Stop, Vex commanded, but his voice lacked its former authority. You don't understand the complexity of the situation. Zara felt Threkos' weakness as the song faded. The effort of communication had drained the creature significantly, but the bond between them had grown stronger, and she could sense its thoughts more clearly. Threkos wasn't asking her to fight. Instead, it was asking her to understand. You're afraid, Zara said to Vex, sudden insight making her voice gentle rather than accusatory. You've spent so long justifying what you did that you can't admit you were wrong. But imprisoning Threkos doesn't change the past. It just creates more suffering. Vex's metallic features showed confusion. He had expected resistance, argument, perhaps even violence. What he hadn't expected was compassion for his own pain. I did what was necessary, he said, but the words sounded hollow even to him. You did what you thought would protect your people from the consequences of their actions, Zara corrected. But protection built on lies isn't really protection at all. Elena, emboldened by the developing understanding, stepped forward with her scanner results. Commander, look at the biological data. Threkos isn't just a guardian creature. It's a living ecosystem, designed to nurture and sustain life. Its cellular structure includes symbiotic organisms that can heal wounds, purify toxins, and even restore damaged environments. The revelation hit Vex like a physical blow. The creatures he had labeled as weapons of destruction were actually living engines of restoration. The worlds they had devastated in the historical records had actually been dying planets that the Guardians had tried to heal. Threkos, gathering its remaining strength, sent a final mental communication to Vex himself. Not words, but pure emotion. Forgiveness. Despite millennia of imprisonment, despite being betrayed by the very people it had served, the creature held no anger, only sadness for the wasted years and hope for a better future. Vex's armor powered down as the emotional impact overwhelmed his defenses. For the first time, in thousands of years, he truly saw what he had done. The creature before him wasn't a relic of violence, but a being of pure compassion, one that had suffered for his mistakes without ever seeking revenge. I was wrong, Vex whispered, the admission seeming to physically pain him. Zara approached the commander slowly, her hand extended in the universal gesture of peace. Being wrong isn't a failure if you're willing to make it right. Around them, Vex's soldiers had completely lowered their weapons. Several had removed their helmets, revealing faces filled with wonder and shame. The truth of what they had been guarding had shattered their certainty, leaving them open to new possibilities. Threkos, despite its exhaustion, began to move, not toward Vex in anger, but toward one of the injured soldiers who had been hurt during the landing. The creature extended one massive claw, and from it flowed a gentle, healing light. The soldier's wounds closed instantly, and more than that, old scars and chronic pain vanished as well. "This is what they were designed for," Elena said in amazement. "Not destruction, but healing. Not conquest, but restoration." Vex watched in silence as Thrakos moved from soldier to soldier, healing not just physical wounds but emotional ones as well. The creature's touch seemed to lift burdens that many of them had carried for centuries, replacing fear and aggression with peace and understanding. When Thrakos reached Vex himself, the commander flinched, expecting punishment for his millennia of cruelty. Instead, the Guardian's touch brought not pain but release. The guilt that had driven him to increasingly desperate measures began to fade, replaced by the possibility of redemption. "Can you ever forgive me?" Vex asked, his voice breaking. Thrakos' response came not in words, but in a gesture of ultimate trust. The great creature slowly lowered itself to the ground and rolled onto its back, exposing its vulnerable belly to the one who had betrayed it so long ago. It was an act of complete faith, a declaration that the past could be forgiven if the future could be different. Zara felt tears streaming down her face as she witnessed this moment of reconciliation. This was what humanity could offer the galaxy, not superior technology or military might, but the wisdom to see past old wounds to new possibilities. Elena began documenting everything, understanding that this moment would reshape how the galaxy viewed both Guardians and their former masters. "We need to tell this story," she said. "The galaxy needs to know the truth." Vex nodded slowly, his transformation complete. "Yes, and we need to find the others. There are 12 more facilities like this one, 12 more Guardians waiting in artificial sleep. They deserve to wake up to a better world than the one that imprisoned them." As the twin suns of Kepler 442 bits set outside the chamber, Thrakos finally achieved what it had been denied for millennia: genuine rest. Not the artificial sleep of containment, but the natural slumber of a being that knew it was safe and valued. Zara remained beside her new friend, her hand resting on the creature's massive head. The bond between them had grown beyond simple communication into something approaching family. Human and Guardian, both protectors by nature, both committed to healing rather than harming. "What happens now?" Elena asked. Zara smiled, feeling Thrakos' contentment through their mental link. "Now we build something new. A partnership between species based on truth instead of fear, on compassion instead of control." Vex, his authority transformed from tyranny into service, began coordinating the awakening of the other facilities. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy would see Guardians and their former masters working together toward a common goal. And at the center of it all, a human engineer who had refused to accept that suffering was necessary proved that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't strength or technology, but simple, uncompromising kindness. The age of the Guardians was beginning again, but this time they would not be weapons or prisoners. They would be what they had always been meant to be, partners in the endless work of making the universe a more compassionate place. Thrakos dreamed of open skies, and for the first time in 3,000 years, those dreams held not longing but anticipation. Tomorrow, it would fly again.